The really big finds of archaeology may already belong to the past. Experts are all over the world looking for traces of former civilizations and their remains. In the process, small and large things are found every day that help to establish connections and better understand the origins of today's civilization. Again and again, archaeologists come across treasures whose meaning and contents they almost can't believe at first. The following finds are about things that you either never expected or where you were amazed to find such treasures even after so many years of excavations. Are you fascinated by mysterious things and archaeological discoveries? Then show us with a thumbs up, subscribe to Hidden Worlds, and join us on our journey. The Stone Treasure Chest in Egypt. The dynasty of Thutmose is perhaps one of the most interesting stories of former Egypt, and at the same time, quite little is known from this golden age of Egypt. Many of the tombs were looted well before our time. Many traces of the former civilization have been destroyed, built over, or have been forgotten. One example is the pharaoh Thutmose II, who is best known for being the husband of the famous Hatshepsut, an Egyptian queen in her own right. The two siblings likely ruled over ancient Egypt for a number of years. They are thought to have lived around 3500 BC. Until now, it was not possible to find even the tomb of the former pharaoh. With the discovery of a stone box during an excavation on the Nile, however, one could get on the trail of the mystery. The contents are typical burial objects from tombs of that time, and a small box in the treasure chest bears the name of the famous pharaoh. So it could be that the excavation team from the University of Warsaw has now come across a clue for the first time as to where the tomb could be found and what would provide an important piece of the puzzle in the tangled history of ancient Egypt. A golden cannonball from the sea. When two amateur researchers came across a golden object while searching for new fossils, they were amazed. At first glance, the round object appeared to be a golden cannonball. This would not be so surprising. However, it was later discovered that it was a very finely polished stone that developed a golden surface due to various chemical properties. The real secret, however, was in the core of the sphere. No sooner had the sphere been broken open than a fossil from the earlier times was revealed. The ammonite-like find is said to be almost 185 million years old. Fortunately, the amateur researchers have recorded their find and the opening, and thus perhaps aroused other interest of people who might find such spheres on the coasts of Great Britain. Ancient dam in Israel. That the Holy Land was inhabited long before Christians, Muslims, and apparently the entire world fighting over the cities has been known for a long time. It's even believed that some of the first peoples arose here after the Great Migration of the first humans to Africa began. Actual evidence of these former peoples, however, has been scarce. That may now have changed with the find. It concerns some dams, which were washed free by special circumstances at the coast of Israel. Due to special weather, the corresponding constructions were visible on the coast for some time. The researchers assumed that these dams were supposed to protect former settlers from the rising sea level, and that was already 7,000 years ago. With the end of the Ice Age, these former settlements were severely threatened and floods were numerous. While the settlements have not been found to this day, the levees and coastal walls have now been visible for at least some time. Ancient ritual sites of Mesopotamia. Even in ancient Persia, worship was not paid to just one god, apart from their own kings of course, but there were usually several temples to several gods, as was also known from Rome or Greece. In Mesopotamia, in present-day Iraq, an ancient cult site of the local god of war has now been discovered. The excavation took place in the ancient capital of the empire, which likely once served the Sumerians as a place for a settlement. Within the deep walls, a temple complex was found, which was likely dedicated to the god of war. In addition to various artifacts dedicated to this deity, there was also a pit. Experts believe that ritual battles took place here in his honor. For example, before starting a war, people fought for the blessing of the god so that he would support the campaign and the war. Titanosaur. A not insignificant part of the dinosaurs is still completely unknown to researchers. Therefore, it is always a small sensation when one comes across the bones of a previously unknown and not yet discovered giant lizard. This sensation becomes even bigger when it's the largest dinosaur ever found. The bones of a dinosaur of the genus Titanosaur were found in Argentina and allow the suspicion that it's the largest creature ever found on Earth. Based on the gigantic thigh bone, the animal is believed to have been 40 meters long, 20 meters high, and weighed about 70 tons. That makes it heavier than 14 African elephants. Fortunately, a significant portion of the 150 bones found are in remarkable condition, and researchers can now spend the next few years learning more about this extraordinary animal. Aboriginal rock art. The Aborigines are one of the oldest peoples, some of whom can still be found living in their classical way of life. These indigenous people of Australia are mysterious and still have many ancient rites and secrets that have to do with the origins of their own civilization. Among the origins of the Aboriginal period is a particular form of rock art that is now believed to be able to be properly dated. The art depicts a wide variety of human and animal forms and tells stories about the former lives of the indigenous people. With the help of insect nests near the rock art, it has now been possible to date the origins of these drawings. Some of them are already 16,000 years old, others are still 12,000 years old. This is just a small indication of how long the Aborigines have been living in Australia and active as a civilization. Takalik-Abah. Takalik-Abah, located deep in the jungles of Guatemala, is one of the many former Aboriginal strongholds that bear signs of various civilizations. For years, archaeologists here have been searching for clues about the former indigenous peoples of South America, especially the Maya and the Inca. Now, not only have they stumbled upon a workshop in the sprawling grounds, but they've also been able to identify some of the drawings they couldn't make sense of before. On one stele, a hint could be identified that it's the city of the greatest kings. This is important because we know that a monarchic high civilization was already active here 100 years after Christ. However, Takalik-Abah still holds many secrets, some of which will hopefully be identified in the coming years. Callanish. Callanish is a formation of standing stones in Scotland that, much like Stonehenge, apparently served as some sort of observatory and place of worship for the original inhabitants of the area. Not only have sacred burial sites been found in various excavations, but the arrangement of the stones suggests that people here began exploring the heavens as early as 2,500 years before our era. The peculiarity lies in the fact that the stones are located on the Scottish Islands. It's still not certain whether these were still connected to the landmass at that time or whether a separate Celtic people emerged here. So, similar to Stonehenge, this original place of worship still offers many unanswered questions about its builders. Ancient Roman Hand of God. Hadrian's Wall in England was designed to protect Roman garrisons from the savage Celts of Scotland. Various Roman camps were located along this rampart, and this man-made frontier was the scene of many brutal battles. Now, during a long-running expedition, a bronze hand has been found which points to one of the most brutal battles near Roman Vindolanda in Northumberland. It's thought that the hand, made from 2.3 kilos of bronze, was buried at the site of one of the battles as a good omen. It was likely a gift to one of the Roman commanders who tried to subdue the rebels in Scotland at this site and advance further north. However, the subsequent history is well known. The Romans never succeeded in conquering Scotland, and in the end they were also driven out of Britain after the collapse of their empire. So this particular artifact probably didn't bring any luck. Sacrificial horses in the tomb of Duke Jing of Qi. Comparatively little is known as yet about the early years of China. What is known, however, is that Duke Jing of Qi was a powerful ruler of an equally powerful dynasty in China around 500 BC. He is said to have been a gifted general and under his conquests succeeded in unifying parts of the country and bringing peace and prosperity to the area, at least for a time. Accordingly, the Duke was buried with honor. Apparently this included the sacrifice of 600 horses. These have now been discovered in the tomb. Neatly lined up, they were likely a sacrifice to the revered ruler. Together with the horses, dogs and pigs were buried, and various riches which are now being discovered piece by piece during archaeological excavations. Again and again, discoveries are made through coincidence, many years of systematic work, or the use of new technologies that give us a glimpse into times long past. An archaeologist never knows what awaits him behind the door to the past. Sometimes it's fabulous treasures, sometimes graves or bog bodies that speak to us, and sometimes researchers find the impossible. Below are 10 examples of such discoveries from recent years that have revolutionized and forever changed our knowledge of early history. The Krogan Man. Moors are an ideal place for preserving organic remains because of their moisture and the lack of oxygen in the soils. Extremely well-preserved bog bodies are therefore found time and again, offering important information about the way of life of peoples in earlier times. In 2003, a bog body was discovered in Ireland, in County Offaly, the so-called Krogan Man. The body is estimated to be over 2,000 years old and, with a height of 1.98 meters, has an extremely unusual physique. His fingernails and the Krogan Man's meat-focused diet indicate he was a member of the social elite in the Iron Age. The area surrounding the burial site was used as a ceremonial site by the Druids at the time, so Krogan Man was identified as a tribal leader. He was killed by a sword thrust, and subsequently the perpetrators severed the torso above the basin. It was likely a ritual killing, like a sacrifice to the gods. 2,000-year-old Roman shoe. The limes formed the border between the Roman Empire and Germania in the years between 100 and 260 AD. One of the best preserved fortifications is the Saalburg in Hesse. A total of 2,600 soldiers and civilians lived there in Roman times. Today, the fort has been reconstructed and is a World Heritage Site. Among the archaeological finds, a 2,000-year-old shoe stands out, highlighting the skills and technology of Roman shoemakers. The Romans are considered the inventors of the modern shoe, which encompasses the entire foot. Also famous are the caligae, the Roman military sandals. The shoe in the Saalburg captivates with its rich ornamentation in the upper leather. The outsole was attached to the upper leather with the help of nails. 2,000-year-old lump. The bogs of Ireland are archaeological treasure troves. In 2016, when peat digger Jack Conaway was removing bog soil that was coveted as heating material, he found an indefinable lump at the depth of 3.60 meters that gave off a fierce smell. The lump turned out to be a total of 10 kilograms of butter, dated to be about 2,000 years old. This was not the first time such a quantity of butter from the Iron Age had been found. Butter was a luxury product 2,000 years ago and was also used as a means of payment for taxes or tributes. It was also considered a popular offering to the gods. Celtic tribes buried butter deep in the ground during ceremonies. After 2,000 years, studies of the butter mass revealed that it was still edible. However, researchers described the butter as brittle and extremely aromatic. 800 Egyptian tombs. Modern archaeology is increasingly using high-tech methods to make new discoveries. Computer scans, radar, and satellite imagery allow targeted excavations. In Egypt, the analysis of the images from space has now led to the discovery of a gigantic burial ground near the city of Lisht. A total of 800 tombs were found, which provided space for over 4,000 people. As researchers assume multiple occupancy over generations, archaeologists are looking at the final resting place of tens of thousands of Middle Kingdom residents. Between 2030 and 1650 BC, the Pharaonic Empire reached economic and cultural prosperity. Unfortunately, modern looters were faster than the scientists and searched the tombs for usable objects. Nevertheless, the team led by Katarina Beard, a professor at Boston University, is optimistic and expects to gain valuable insights into everyday life in the Middle Kingdom. 2,000-year-old marble head. With the fall of the Roman Empire, the knowledge and culture of the Romans was also lost. The buildings and testimonies decayed, and soon no one associated anything with the remains. People used the ruins as quarries to obtain good building material. While uncovering a medieval wall in the center of Rome, archaeologists came across the head of a marble statue of the Roman god Dionysus, the god of wine, joy, and intoxication. The marble head, which is about 60 centimeters tall, belonged to a statue made in the 1st century BC and then used as a simple wall stone. The statue's eyes were originally made of glass or precious stones, but were taken out. In Roman times, the white marble statues shone with color and were adorned with valuable jewelry. The god Dionysus or Bacchus also stood for fertility and was one of the most popular god figures in Caesar's time. Stone Age Well. During construction work for a highway in Ostrov, Czech Republic, workers came across a wooden structure in the ground. Informed archaeologists identified the wooden object, which measured 80 by 80 centimeters and 25 centimeters high, as the casing of a well. Examination of the wood revealed that the trees were felled about 7,250 years ago. This makes the remains of the well the oldest man-made wooden structure ever found. The boards used by the Neolithic people had wooden rivets to hold them together. This indicates a high technical level. The hazelnut trees and beech trees came from the surrounding area. The well enclosure allows a glimpse into the living conditions of the first settlers of Europe. In the Neolithic period, people settled down and gave up their nomadic life. What the water reveals. Global warming holds unexpected opportunities for archaeologists. In northern Iraq, a prolonged drought uncovered part of a palace attributed to the kingdom of Mitanni. This kingdom ruled large parts of Syria and Anatolia 3,400 years ago. The water level of a reservoir used for drinking water dropped dramatically in a short period of time, revealing the ruins. In the palace, which had an area of more than 2,000 square meters, the researchers found murals in bright red and blue on brick walls, which were previously unknown in this form. Inscriptions on the walls point to the ancient city of Zachiku. The excavations were a race against time, as the ruins could be washed over again by the reservoir at any time. After 3 weeks of work, the palace sank back into the water, but the palace is one of the most significant archaeological finds made in this region in recent decades. 3 ancient baths. Chinese advanced civilization and the preeminent position of the Middle Kingdom began with the unification of China by the Qin dynasty in 221 BC. The centuries before were marked by a rivalry of a total of 16 principalities. This period went down in history as the age of contending empires. Chinese archaeologists have now uncovered a palace complex from the period of the civil wars in Yueyang, the former capital of the Qin Empire. Part of a residential complex within the compound, 3 luxury baths were among the items discovered. The baths were lined with valuable ceramic tiles and bricks and had running water and a sewage system. The ruins are the oldest recorded bathing facilities in China. Researchers believe it's likely they were used by the king of the Qin state. Fresco of fighting gladiators. The Roman city of Pompeii sank under volcanic ash in 79 BC when Mount Vesuvius erupted. What was an absolute catastrophe for the people at that time, with tens of thousands of dead, turned out in retrospect to be a stroke of luck for archaeology. Under the ash, the entire city and its inhabitants froze at the moment of the catastrophe. The burnt and charred remains of buildings as well as of people and animals were preserved. In a tavern, researchers found the almost completely preserved wall relief of a gladiatorial fight during excavations in 2019. The stone mosaic shows the final scene of a fight. The defeated and severely injured gladiator pleads for his life while the victor awaits the verdict of the spectators. Depicted in the context of a Roman-era entertainment venue, the popularity of gladiators is comparable to that of modern-day pop stars. Emperor for 27 days. Liu He is the Han Dynasty emperor with arguably the worst reputation. He was overthrown after only 27 days for violations of mourning rules and incompetence. He went into exile in the provinces and was given the title of Count of Hihun 10 years later. He went down in history as an unpredictable spendthrift, a description that now seems to have been confirmed. After rumors of the discovery of a tomb by looters, the authorities of Jiangxi province reacted immediately and sent a commission of archaeologists. They came across a huge field of Han Dynasty-era tombs with a total area of 3,700 square meters. Despite the looting, the researchers could not believe their eyes when they opened one of the burial chambers. They stood in front of the tomb of the 27-day emperor Liu He. Inside the tomb was a treasure second to none. In addition to 2 million bronze coins weighing 10 tons, the archaeologists found over 20,000 jewelry items made of gold, copper, jade, and amber. In addition, 20 horses were buried in splendor. The most important find, however, was the oldest copy of the writings of Confucius. Journeys into the millennia. People thousands of years ago have always created impressive things that fascinate and puzzle us. The discoveries of archaeology bring the people of that time to life. Much, however, will always remain a mystery to us, and we will never fully understand our ancestors. Not only is the future a mystery, so is our past. Until we become time travelers and talk to the people of times past, all that will remain are the remnants of distant cultures. The countless artifacts from past centuries, which are still often buried in the ground today, provide the experts with important insights into the lives of earlier humans. In combination with contemporary writings and historical reports, researchers are thus able to paint an even more accurate picture of our human history. However, archaeologists can never know when they will make the next great sensational discovery. Therefore, the joy that researchers feel when they make an extraordinary discovery is all the more understandable. In today's video, we would like to present you 10 unbelievable archaeological discoveries, which rightly put the experts in a jubilant mood. Warrior helmet. Many centuries ago, when a soldier had to go into battle, he usually faced his enemy in direct combat, where fighting skill and sheer manpower decided which fighter left the battlefield alive in the end. To protect themselves from the sword and spear blows of the enemy, the ancient Greeks slipped into imposing armor, which, with its martial appearance, also served the purpose of intimidating the enemy even before the direct confrontation. Off the coast of the Israeli city of Haifa, archaeologists discovered a remarkably well-preserved Greek warrior helmet, likely made between the 6th and 5th centuries BC. The gilding and numerous ornaments adorning the helmet attest to the high military rank of its former owner. However, it's completely unknown whose head the warrior helmet once protected from enemy attacks. One theory suggests that the helmet may have once belonged to the equipment of a soldier who was part of the Greek navy. This would also explain the location of the find on the seabed. Between the 6th and 5th centuries BC, the ancient Greeks were engaged in a warlike feud with the Persians, who at the time ruled what is now Israel. Anglo-Saxon jewelry. Nowadays, many people possess a weakness for high-end jewelry. While the precious rings, brooches, and necklaces ennoble the face of the wearer, they also represent their respective wealth. The people of previous generations also used these splendid objects to adorn themselves and to show their social status to the outside world. Many centuries ago, the value of precious objects in everyday life was far greater than it is today. In Anglo-Saxon society, both men and women wore splendidly decorated jewelry. When a particularly high-ranking member of the community died, he was sometimes given extraordinarily precious grave goods on his last journey to the afterlife. In 2003, researchers in Great Britain succeeded in finding a large Anglo-Saxon burial complex. In the process, the experts also came across magnificent brooches that were most likely made between the 6th and 7th centuries. The fascinating, detailed workmanship of the corresponding pieces of jewelry in turn provides many insights into the lifestyle as well as the burial culture of the Anglo-Saxons. Golden Rhinoceros of Mapun Gubwe. Although the golden rhinoceros of Mapun Gubwe is relatively small, its symbolism represents pure power. The rhino is one of the strongest animals on the planet, while the precious gold has always reflected influence and wealth. The golden rhino originates from the kingdom of Mapun Gubwe, which was founded in the 13th century in the south of the African continent. For a long time, the magnificently crafted object was thought to be irretrievably lost, but in 1934, archaeologists managed to recover the precious artifact from a time-honored royal tomb. The inhabitants of Mapun Gubwe were active traders with surrounding states and had an unrestricted monopoly on the gold market at the time. Bizarre traces. The depths of the sea seem as impressive as they are bizarre. In the middle of the Pacific Ocean off the Californian coast, researchers have come across a mysterious, gigantic object with a diameter of more than 4 kilometers. It appears that the unidentified object is a man-made relic. Some experts believe that the unusual find may actually be the remains of an ancient fortification that disappeared from the surface at some point due to a shift in sea level. The bizarre part of the story, however, is the fact that the circular structure traces a long swath of about 66 kilometers. It almost seems as if the object is moving forward. It will likely be some time before the mystery of the gigantic structure on the ocean floor is solved. the first true Americans. For a long time, experts believed that the first humans reached the American continent around 25,000 years ago. However, an impressive bone find recorded near the major city of San Diego has given reason to completely rethink the historiography. Back in 1992, experts succeeded in recovering the remains of a mammoth as well as fragments of stone tools from the ground. However, due to the technically limited means of the time, the experts were unable to determine the exact age of the sensational find. With the help of a modern method, the relics have now been examined again, with an astonishing result. Using a method known as uranium-thorium dating, the researchers determined that the find in question is around 130,000 years old. Since the ancient mammoth bones show various traces, which in all likelihood were created by the influence of weapons and tools, direct conclusions about the history of mankind can also be drawn from the age of the animal bones. Thus, our ancestors set foot on the American mainland more than 100,000 years earlier than previously thought. Homo sapien fossils. As most of you probably already know, we humans are listed in biological systematics as Homo sapiens. Thus, we represent a species from the genus Homo and are officially counted among the great apes. The African continent has always been regarded as the cradle of mankind, because according to the unanimous opinion of experts, this is where the first representatives of our species developed. Therefore, experts have been scouring the most diverse areas in Africa for countless decades, in the hope of discovering more and more new bone finds that will provide further information about the development of modern humans. In Morocco, the researchers finally scored a major coup. In a cave, they found a human skull that is around 300,000 years old. These are the oldest known remains of a Homo sapien ever. Before the experts made their extraordinary discovery, it was thought that Homo sapiens evolved no earlier than 200,000 years ago. Oldest tools outside Africa. Around 2 million years ago, Homo erectus walked our globe. This was a species that, just like us humans, is classified in the genus Homo. Although Homo erectus became completely extinct over the course of thousands of years, the representatives of the species were still considered pioneers in toolmaking and were also the first hominin species to master the upright gait. In the heart of China, archaeologists stumbled upon an impressive hoard of nearly 100 Homo erectus stone tools, believed to have been made between 1.3 and 2.1 million years ago. Until now, scientists had agreed that our distant relatives left the African continent much later. The oldest known tools outside Africa thus provide evidence that Homo erectus left his ancestral homeland 250,000 years earlier than previously thought. Stonehenge in Holland. The English Stonehenge has always been the subject of various myths. How was it possible for people 4,000 years ago to transport stone blocks weighing tons over great distances, and then to erect them into an impressive, symmetrical structure? What was the purpose of this venerable Bronze Age structure? While we are often confronted with mysteries and legends surrounding Stonehenge, we quickly forget that the monumental structure is by no means the only one of its kind. The Netherlands is also home to no less impressive prehistoric structures known as dolmens. These are ancient burial structures that consist in detail of massive, unhewn blocks of stone, known in the trade as megaliths. The dolmens in the Netherlands have an age of around 5,000 years, which makes them even older than the world-famous Stonehenge and the prominent Egyptian pyramids. The individual boulders weigh up to 20,000 kilograms and originate from distant regions. Since people for many centuries could not explain how the dolmens came to be, the legend quickly arose that the massive burial structures were built by mystical giants. Benben. In the world of Egyptian mythology, the Benben stone holds unparalleled significance. According to legend, the pyramid-shaped structure is the hill on which the Egyptian primordial deity Atum first entered the earthly world. The ancient Egyptians believed that the Benben came from a divine overworld. Some experts think it's quite possible that this thesis is true, albeit in a somewhat different way than the inhabitants of ancient Egypt assumed. It may be that the stone is the fragment of a galactic object that once struck the surface of the Earth. Over the years, the Egyptians made numerous other sacred objects that were modeled after the Benben stone in appearance. Even the magnificent pyramids, for example, were visually modeled after the Benben. The Atlantic Wall Bunker. The Atlantic Wall was built between 1942 and 1944 and was intended to protect the Third Reich from invasion from the sea. The more than 2,600-kilometer-long defense line stretched along the coast of the North Sea, the English Channel, and the eponymous Atlantic Ocean. Originally, Hitler gave the order to build the bulwark in the occupied countries over a distance of 5,000 kilometers. Countless inhabitants of the annexed territories were forcibly recruited for the construction of the Atlantic Wall, after which they had to perform the arduous work under inhumane conditions. Even today, many bunkers of the Atlantic Wall can be found on the beaches of the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and Denmark. In fact, some installations in Holland are currently being painstakingly renovated and restored to their original condition. So, how did you like today's video? Which artifact would you like to see with your own eyes? Has one find in particular captivated you? We are already looking forward to your comments. Thank you for your interest, take care, and see you next time.